Let's give a warm welcome to Jen.
You got that James Dean daydream look in your eye, and I got that red.
Hi, everybody. As he said, I'm Jen. I work for Bread Financial. They're based out of Columbus, Ohio. Bread Financial supports over 200 of the nation's largest brands. So think like really big name retailers, including the top bra and lingerie retailer in the United States. Can't say any names, but can at least give you a hint. So my role at Bread Financial, I've been there for coming up on 11 years now. I started in email execution, and my career has pretty much been focused within the email world. A milestone in my career a few years ago is when our team took full service email execution with our ESP over to self-service, and we reorged as an entire team. That was something that I kind of helped spearhead, right? So I helped lead all of the HTML training, process setup, all of that executional work. And then I got an opportunity to move to the team I'm on now, which is our channel marketing team. I own email, SMS, and direct mail. And as part of that, I get to be going out into the marketplace and finding new technologies and seeing what's out there. And you know, our organization was at a point where we really needed to get to some market parity with some of the technology we were using. So that's exactly where Movable Ink came in. So this is where we landed. These numbers are pretty large, right? I'll talk to you today about how Bread Financial scaled, how we got here, some of the key approaches to driving this innovation, and actionable takeaways to encourage adoption. And I'll explain some of these numbers as we go through this presentation. So to start, education and change management. So this was a really big part of, this is kind of the key to unlocking this for us. So when we started, we're a younger marketing organization. We didn't have as much experience within individual channels. Nobody was focused before this channel marketing role on specifically within that email channel to kind of dive deep. Everybody just knew a little bit and kind of went across the board. So we held a ton of upskilling sessions, which I would record and save down and make that available to the entire organization, just even like, not only just like onboarding materials, but just something that they could refer back to every single time, so that it created something that they could self-service at their own convenience and learn about Movable Ink without having to have my time get taken up with explaining things or holding live sessions, things like that. So that was something that was super helpful. And then the team also helped us conduct regular strategy sessions. So we started with quarterly strategy sessions and recording everything and kind of handing it back to the team, and that ended up going to monthly. So we were constantly kind of talking about what's new in market, what was successful, what wasn't successful, how we can tweak some of the learning agendas to get to the right, the right test and the right execution. So it was talking about the work kind of constantly is driving some of that continued innovation. Next, to scale the approach, we're a really highly matrixed and regulated organization. So driving new things across that highly matrixed organization is pretty tough. It creates a lot of barriers to adoption. And so process is extremely critical and getting that right so that people will adopt it, and it's not this, well, why am I doing this extra thing, right? So I didn't want any of those kinds of barriers getting in the way. So knowing, I had previously worked within our process, and I understood everything that our teams were doing to execute emails, I created very detailed process documentation, and it allowed for people, again, to self-serve at their own convenience. And I also created a lot of feedback sessions so that people can build trust, right? They knew they could come to me and say, hey, I think there's a problem with this process. So I would make sure to take that feedback and try to action on things as soon as I could, knowing that when people feel heard, they're obviously going to be far more engaged in what you're trying to get them to do. So not only that, I also created playbooks where I took the kind of the guesswork out of what to test for the teams. So instead of saying, here's all of the available modules that Movable Inc. offers, I took it down and said, okay, for our financial services industry and our business and our goals, here's the top 5 things I want to test within our acquisition marketing and the top 5 things I want to test within our ECM, so our customer marketing. And I took a lot of that guesswork out of it for those people. So they no longer had to, they didn't have to adopt a new strategy and think about how to implement it at the same time. And I also wanted to make sure that these results were clearly measurable outcomes. So these use cases that I came up with were easy to use, easy to implement, and easy to measure. So then, for continued innovation, we kept up these quarterly and monthly strategy sessions and continued to evolve the tools and processes. Sorry about that. Oh, sorry. So then we tried to create some more advanced strategies to continue to push everything and push the boundaries and meet some of our shared clients between Movable Inc. and Bread Financial where they are. So we had some clients that were very new to it, some clients that were very seasoned. So I wanted to kind of continue to push the boundaries. So this is an example of a tool that I created called I call it a test planning tool. So we implemented this kind of early on in the process. The great thing about this is we're full service with Movable Inc. We're not going in and executing anything ourselves. So what we ended up doing in order to be able to effectively communicate is I took this process and I broke it down across the team and kind of delineated specific tasks to individual teams based off of their areas of expertise. And this really helped with adoption because nobody needed to know the entire end-to-end process or how Movable Inc. worked in order to execute on it. They just needed to know, oh, I need to provide this at this time with this timeline, and here's the little piece that I own, so that nobody had to know kind of the end-to-end, and I could be in a more consultative role instead of hands-on driving the work. This was a really successful tool. We still use it today. And the Movable Inc. team has told me that they absolutely love having this much of a guideline for them to be able to know exactly what data to tie to what creative. So then another tactic I used was using a pre-built module. So our business kind of has some standard activities that we want our team to take, or our customers to take when they're onboarding or throughout their customer journey. So these are, this is a pre-built checklist of all of those activities, but it's really generic and it can pull in all of our brand colors, all of our different things that are necessary to create a branded experience, but generic enough that any brand can pick this up and adopt it. And that went a long way to making sure that we could get some of that adoption early because it was pre-built and all they had to do was supply the data points that were needed to drive this, and we could get something off the ground pretty quickly. So then we get to our first test. This is a specialty retailer that used scratch-off functionality for the first time. So this is a card member appreciation campaign, and it's not even a new campaign, right? So this was something that had been done for a couple years previously, and it's twice a year. So customers were used to getting this offer. They're used to seeing an offer around this time of year. The only difference that we had between this campaign and the previous one was utilizing that scratch-off offer, and it started to work, right? So we saw a huge lift in click-through rate, obviously, because it's a scratch-off and you've got to go out to the page to scratch. But it was still a modest lift in conversion, 1.5%. You know, it's good. It's in the right direction. It's positive, but it's not. It was still modest, but it was a start, right? It was a place to get somewhere else. It was positive results to share back with the organization and say, hey, this works. Look at the progress we're making here. So it was a really nice first win to get across the finish line with our team. So then the next example here is a travel and entertainment partner that wanted to incorporate this same kind of checklist within their newsletters that they send out to their credit card holders. However, they needed a little bit like customized actions, right? The pre-built content I built before wasn't branded enough, didn't have the right data points, etc. So we worked with them to build the example you see here on the screen. And this example, they got ready for the summer travel season, so we decided to add this cute little gas gauge to kind of, push the theme across the finish line, so to speak. So in this example, the customer took 3 of the 4 actions, so the gas gauge was 3/4 full. This drove huge results, a 150% lift in enrollment for paperless statements, which is, if you're in financial services, that's huge. Lots of company savings, et cetera, on that, not mailing a physical statement out. And then we saw a 2% lift in redemption of cash back, which, again, that's large enough within, you're getting a lot of people to take a specific action. So, using a credit card sometimes can be kind of tough because you don't necessarily have a direct action to take. So this was nice to see that people were responding to something when we did ask them to take an action. And next was where we started to see really big change. So this example is for another travel and entertainment partner. They have a credit card and wanted to track customer spend towards a bonus. So spend $5,000 within a calendar year and get bonus points. So all we did was added this little progress bar in here and showed the customer exactly where they were at in that journey. And we saw huge lift over the previous campaign. I had to double check these numbers because I was like, this can't be right? So you're not gonna see triple digit lifts and engagement and conversion. Like there's no way this is real. In fact, in my case study that I built from it, I even put year over year metrics side by side so that people could do the math themselves and knew I wasn't making it up. So yes, we saw 700% lift in spend per customer that this campaign went out to, and then 490% lift in conversion, so people that were actually hitting that $5,000 mark. The next example I have here is for a co-brand year-end summary. So our co-brand programs send a summary email, people have been kind of mentioning Spotify Wrapped. This is a little bit like that for us. Normally it's just a PDF that gets posted to that person's account, but the team wanted to make this more engaging. So they adopted this nice little infographic. The great thing about this campaign is that it was one of the first times we were actually able to utilize Movable Inc.'s capability to scale, and not only that, but to reduce time to market, right? So in this message, we were able to send this out for over 60 different brands and almost 3 million customers with one template. So that was like a huge win for us executionally as a team to be able to personalize to the brand partner and the customer at the same time. This saw an 8.6% rate of accessing the summary, so going to their account and downloading the PDF. And again, over 60 of those brands were represented of our 200-ish, but it's a big win when you're trying to do large-scale campaigns like that. So then the next use case is very different from everything else we had been doing. So our data science team came to us. They had been working with one of our jewelry partners on a product recommendation engine. This utilizes the brand's data, purchase history, site behaviors to come up with personalized products and showcase them within our credit emails, first time for us, first time for them, versus just the brand's emails, their marketing. So this was tested during Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, two of the biggest holidays of the year in terms of jewelry purchases. And in that time frame, we saw an average 38% lift in conversion that we can attribute to this product recommendation engine, and a 116% lift in click-through rate. So still seeing double-digit incrementality over the heaviest shopping seasons of the year. It was pretty phenomenal. It was great to see these results. We're trying to scale some of this to some of our other brand partners now as a result of the success of this module. So what's next for us? We're continuing to push all use cases and through the diversity of all of our brands and verticals. There's lots of room to continue to explore, test, build new use cases, and learn. We are working with shared partners between us and Movable Inc. to share data and content across both experiences to create a more seamless cardholder experience. And some of our brands have loyalty with the card that is on top of loyalty with the brand. So how do you bring all of that together and demonstrate the added value that having that card has to that customer? So we're working on some of those use cases to start to drive some of that activity. And then our internal team will be taking on some of our self-service activities for the first time, working in the tool and working towards a faster speed to market. So some takeaways from today. Educate and innovate. Continue to educate, continue to have discussions about the work, the strategies, have clear documentation, try to anticipate needs, and then always be willing to listen to feedback. I was one person working this process with 40 of our strategists. I don't know everything, so knowing that they could come to me and provide that feedback was really helpful. Collaboration to build scale, just making sure that we're creating things that take some of that guesswork out of adoption. If I can see the strategy and share that out, I can help those people incorporate that into their campaigns, get them learning how this works, and then they can, run with it on their own. And then last, but of course not least, test to drive results, right? So even the smallest, modest results can lead to bigger things down the road, gaining of adoption, talking about it, which will drive continued adoption. So thank you very much for your time, appreciate it. And if you have any questions or want to chat more, please come find me.